Hey guys, there you are. Woohoo! Yeah, so yesterday for me turned out to be a really crappy day. And let me tell you why. I could just feel it in the air. And there were signs, okay? I had to go to the dentist yesterday, so nobody likes that, right? I'm not the dentist, the oral surgeon, because yeah, I want to get a tooth extracted. Not want to, have to. Or, I don't want to pay a bunch of money to try to save it. Anyway, so as I'm scrolling through TikTok yesterday, I happened to see the guy that does the overhead voice, like he does like the guys at Home Depot and the wife's looking for him or has a chore list for him to pick up, that guy. Well, he did a skit on being at the dentist's office, okay? And I'm like, "Oh, that's funny." Yeah, yeah, that's real funny. And I even put in the comments something about I guess I'll have to go find the pliers and do my own. Yeah. That that was on point yesterday. That was really on point. Um, because I went to my the appointment, and when I got there, I had left everything at home. I just for some reason, it was a whole bad thing. So I wound up losing, my money and everything. I left it at home. So I went in there anyway. Um, first they called me because I was a little late just because I couldn't find the place. So they called me to make sure I was coming. They were so worried about me, you know. Oh, yeah, they they weren't worried about me. Anyways, so they call me. I'm telling them, I'm looking for you. I'll be there in a minute. I finally find them. And I get in there and we get set down to talk about, well, first of all, uh, the receptionist, she wasn't warm and fuzzy, but she wasn't really rude. She just, was doing her job. I mean, it was kind of awkward because I was standing there and I was kind of waiting for her to talk to me, but she was on the phone. And then she just kind of like, just it was like I was there, but I don't know. It was a weird feeling, but I was like, okay, whatever. But the lady that brought me back to the room, she was okay. She was all right. Anyways, she says, well, we can't do anything without a referral. So do you have a referral? I said, oh no, not with me. She says, okay, well, let's call your dentist. Let's get your referral and a copy of your X-ray. I said, okay. So I wait back there. She comes back. She says, well, we can get the referral, but we can't use the X-ray. Like, okay, so that's going to cost money, right? But that was in my head. But I didn't ask. I'm just like, okay, well, I have insurance. I knew they were out of network, but I didn't know that I was going to have to come up with the whole amount up front and then go to my insurance company for reimbursement. Yeah, they didn't tell me that. Um, so anyway, we get to talking, and I was like, okay, well, I can't schedule the surgery until I find out how much I have to pay for insurance, right? So she says, okay, well, let's talk, and so I go over there and talk with the office manager. And that's when I find out that I needed to come up with the money up front before, before I can have the procedure done. Now, granted, I owe money because I just went to the consultation. Yeah. Um, and had the x-ray done that they didn't need to do. And let me tell you why I found out that they didn't need to do the x-ray. So I called my dentist today and I asked them if they had called yesterday for the referral and for the x-ray. Something just told me they didn't, I don't know what it was in the back of my head. And while I was talking to my dentist, they call on the second line and they're asking for the referral. Not the x-ray, though. They don't care about the x-ray now because they've just taken me for a ride. And I'm just going to have to pay for another x-ray. So yeah. So with that being said, I think they did me dirty. So it's Premier Oral Surgeon here in Lapeer. I wouldn't recommend them. And I don't know if it's all Premier Oral Surgeons or just this group or not, But I know that they charge for things. They do extra things to charge you for stuff. But they really could have said something like you're going to have to pay for everything up front before we can even see you. They should have said that. They didn't say that. Um, now again, I didn't know what out of network means. Apparently, that's what it means. However, some places you just pay a bigger deductible, which I thought was going to happen because that's the way I thought it went, but apparently not. So I'm not really sure how this is going to go down. I just know that from now on, I will be uh, talking with them sternly about anything that happens before I get anything done. Doesn't matter if it's a dentist, doctor, whatever. Just, yeah. And of course, make sure they're in network because if they're not even worth, going to now, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, Premier Dental, or Premier Oral Surgeon, whatever, of Lapeer, do better. You guys are a bunch of scammers, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the people there, maybe it's just a company, but whatever. Anyway, have a good one.